Welcome back to Chapter by Chapter Stories. Chapter 3 Voices in the Walls. The word echoed in Rowan's head long after the sound itself faded. Don't. Not shouted, not even truly whispered. It had arrived fully formed, like a thought that hadn't belonged to him, but had decided to borrow his mind anyway. Rowan stood frozen at the base of the stairwell, his flashlight trembling in his grip. The beam wavered across the stone floor, catching in shallow puddles and glinting off mineral streaks in the walls. His heart slammed so hard against his ribs that he was sure it could be heard, not just by Maeve and Eli, but by whatever had spoken, whatever was still listening. Maeve didn't move. Eli didn't breathe. The carved lantern symbol behind them dimmed slowly, its faint amber glow retreating into the stone as if it had never existed at all. 1 second it was there, soft and steady, like a promise. The next, it was gone, swallowed by shadow. For a long moment, the only sound was water. Not rushing, not splashing. Listening. Rowan swallowed, his throat dry. "Did you hear?" "Yes," Maeve said immediately. Her voice was tight but controlled, the voice she used when fear tried to push its way in and she refused to give it room. "I heard it." Eli nodded once, pale, eyes fixed on the wall to their left. That wasn't imagined. Rowan didn't finish the question forming in his mind. What was it? Because the answer felt too large to name, too old, too patient. Above them, somewhere far beyond the curve of the stairwell, a twig snapped. Maeve's head snapped up instantly. That was close. Rowan angled his flashlight upward. The beam climbed the curve of the stairwell, illuminating slick stone steps that looked darker now than they had moments ago. Not just unlit, but thickened, as if the shadows themselves had weight. He couldn't see the opening. He couldn't see the forest. He could only see darkness bending inward, folding around the stairwell like a guarded throat. Eli whispered, "Someone's standing up there." Rowan's stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "Because the footsteps stopped," Eli said quietly. "And whoever it is, they're listening." The whispering in the walls began again, not louder, closer. Rowan turned his head slowly and pressed his ear to the stone. The wall was cold and wet, rough beneath his skin. But beneath that, beneath the stone, something vibrated faintly, like distant voices carried through water. The sound wasn't coming from one place. It moved. Through the stone itself, fragments brushed against his hearing. A breath, a murmur, a word that almost formed and then slid away, unfinished. Maeve watched him, jaw set. "Rowan, don't." He pulled back, heart racing. "There are so many of them." Eli's voice shook. "How many?" Rowan swallowed hard. "I don't know. Too many." Maeve crossed her arms tightly, grounding herself. Boots planted firm against the slick floor. "Okay, new rule. We don't touch the walls anymore." Eli gave a weak nod. Agreed. The chamber felt smaller now. Not physically. The walls hadn't moved, but the air had settled heavier, pressing inward. Moisture dripped from the ceiling in slow, uneven beats. Each drop sounded louder than the last, like a countdown. Rowan forced himself to breathe evenly and swept his flashlight across the chamber again. Stone, water, moss, cracks, old chisel marks near the floor where something had once been fitted carefully into place. That was when he noticed something new. Not the initials, those were everywhere, layered over decades. Names carved shallow or deep, some careful, some frantic. Proof that people had been there before. Something lower. Maeve noticed it too. Wait. She crouched near the far wall, brushing aside a thin layer of damp grit and pale moss. There's another mark. Rowan stepped closer. Carved into the stone, deeper than the initials, was a symbol. A spiral. Not decorative, not careless, intentional. Maeve traced the air above it without touching. This one's different. Eli knelt beside her, eyes wide. That symbol appears all over Hollow Creek. Maeve glanced at him. Where? Old places, Eli said. The bridge supports, cemetery gates, survey stones near the mill, even the foundation of the old schoolhouse. Rowan's pulse quickened. What does it mean? Eli shook his head slowly. No one agrees. Some records say it marks boundaries, others say it marks danger. Maeve frowned. Well, which is it? Eli's mouth tightened. Both? The whispering surged. Rowan flinched as a breath of cold air swept across the back of his neck. Maeve straightened abruptly. That wasn't the wall. Rowan's heart slammed. What do you mean? Maeve's eyes darted toward the tunnel leading out of the chamber. That felt like someone passing by. They all turned. The passage was empty. A thin stream of water trickled quietly along the floor, disappearing into a crack near the chamber's edge. Eli whispered. The sound moved. Rowan's skin prickled. It's following the tunnel. The whispering shifted again. Not louder, not clearer, but more focused, directional. Then, unmistakably, a voice brushed Rowan's ear. Not from the wall, but from the air itself. Leave. Maeve gasped. Rowan spun, flashlight swinging wildly. Who's there? The beam revealed only damp stone and shadow. Eli's breath came fast. That wasn't memory. Maeve backed away until her shoulders touched the opposite wall. That was a warning. A grinding sound echoed behind them. Rowan turned just in time to see the stairwell shift. Not collapsed, but close. Stone scraped against stone as the edges of the opening tightened, the curve narrowing by inches. Dust rained down. Maeve screamed, It's sealing! Rowan lunged forward, boots slipping on wet stone. Go! They ran. Footsteps pounded, their own, frantic and uneven, but above them another sound joined in. Movement. Heavy, deliberate. Eli reached the stairs first and shoved upward. It's stuck! Rowan slammed his shoulder against the stone, pain jolting through him. Push! Maeve planted her feet and shoved too, teeth clenched, breath tearing from her chest. The whispering exploded around them, not angry, panicked. Dozens of voices overlapping in one desperate surge. Don't! Please! Wait! Rowan's vision blurred. The stone door groaned. Light burst through the narrow gap above. Moonlight, sharp and silver. They shoved harder. The door gave way with a final shuddering scrape. They tumbled out onto the forest floor, gasping, lungs burning, hands scraping dirt and leaves. The night air felt impossibly fresh. Behind them, the stone slid back into place beneath the sycamore's roots, sealing with a low, final thud. Gone. Just earth, bark, shadow. No seam, no door, no sign it had ever existed. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Rowan lay on his back, staring up at the branches, his heart racing so fast he thought he might pass out. Maeve sat up slowly, hugging her knees. That was not okay. Eli laughed once, short and breathless. Understatement. Rowan rolled onto his side. Did you hear them? Maeve nodded. All of them. Eli swallowed hard. They weren't trying to scare us. Rowan closed his eyes. They were scared. The owl's wings brushed the air overhead. Rowan opened his eyes just in time to see it glide between the trees, vanishing into darkness. Maeve followed its path. That thing's been watching us this whole time. Eli nodded slowly, like it's a sign. Rowan pushed himself up, legs shaking. Whatever's under Hollow Creek, he trailed off. Maeve finished it for him. It doesn't want to be buried. Eli stared at the sycamore roots, and someone has spent a very long time making sure it stays that way. Rowan reached into his backpack and pulled out the map. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. The paper had changed. Maeve leaned closer. Rowan. A new mark had appeared, a thin line stretching from the sycamore toward a familiar square, Arkstone Mill. Rowan's voice came out hoarse. It's not over. Maeve stared at the line. It's just starting. The creek murmured softly by, flowing exactly where it always had, as if nothing had happened, as if it hadn't almost swallowed them whole. Rowan folded the map carefully. Above them, the woods breathed, and beneath Hollow Creek, the voices continued to whisper, unheard, but awake. End of chapter 3. If you're enjoying the book, please leave a comment below and come back next week for Chapter 4.